I'm Daniel Reyes, 42, single father and community college janitor. The folding chairs dug into my back, too narrow for comfort, too cold under the gymnasium lights that buzzed slightly louder than they should. I'd arrived early, sat in the middle row for the best view of the stage, third seat from the left. That way. When my daughter Lily danced, she'd see me. I made sure of that every year. The school gym smelled of waxed wood and cheap popcorn. Fluorescent light bounced off the glossy floorboards, and a bright purple banner reading Spring Bloom Recital 7 p.m. fluttered slightly from the draft of the back doors opening and closing as more parents filed in, all in varying degrees of dressed up. I wore a light gray button-up shirt pressed just this morning and black slacks I'd kept in the plastic wrap since Christmas. Not flashy, but clean, respectful. In my lap sat a medium-sized white box tied with a red satin ribbon. Inside was a pair of custom ballet slippers I'd saved up for pink leather, stitched with her initials LR on the inside sole. The store even gift-wrapped it. No charge. I didn't know what kind of beau kids liked these days, but red felt like a celebration. I held the box for almost 30 minutes, shifting it from hand to hand, feeling eyes pass over me. Some nodded politely. Most didn't notice. I'd smiled at a few familiar faces, other parents from Lily's class, but they passed me by with half-formed expressions, busy scanning for someone more important. I kept the box in view. It wasn't just a gift. It was the one thing I'd managed to afford this month that felt extra. When the lights dimmed and the opening music played, people settled into a hush, but my seat was suddenly blocked by the woman in front of me standing and waving wildly at someone near the front. Her voice was loud, rehearsed, almost dramatic. "Clara, Clara! Over here! We saved your spot." Two more women followed, climbing over feet and muttering apologies. One of them paused when her purse bumped my hand. "Sorry, oh, Dan. Didn't see you there," she said. Then, after a beat, "You still work at the campus?" I smiled, nodding. "Yeah, night shifts mostly. Got off early today." She blinked, nodded vaguely, and turned back to her friend. I didn't realize they let staff sit in the center row. Let. That word sat differently in my stomach than anything else she'd said. The show began. Kids spun in tiny circles. Parents cooed and clapped. Each time a group finished, proud relatives rushed forward with flowers, gifts, and phone cameras. The center aisle clogged with people stepping over bags, boxes, and arms raised for a better shot. When Lily's group took the stage, 8 girls in light pink tutus with gold trim, my heart thumped like it did the first time she took her first steps. She didn't look nervous. Her posture was upright, proud, arms ready at her side. The music began. Lily moved in perfect time, her turns graceful, hands like wings, and she landed the final arabesque with the quiet intensity I'd seen only in dancers on TV. That moment, right there. I felt my throat tighten. As the audience applauded, I stood too. My hand reached instinctively for the box, but before I could step into the aisle, 3 sets of parents swarmed past me with flower bouquets and huge camera rigs. I was brushed aside like static. Someone's shoulder clipped mine hard. "Whoa, careful there," said a man I didn't know, his camera bag bumping my knee. I waited for the wave to pass, then slowly stood again. The lights on stage stayed up as the principal walked to the microphone. A petite woman with thick glasses and silver-streaked hair. She always wore long patterned shawls and clutched her clipboard like it was armor. "Before we begin our final performance," she said, voice firm over the mic, "we'd like to acknowledge a very generous gift made anonymously to our arts program this season." She paused, looking out into the crowd. This donation not only covered new costumes and music licensing fees, but also ensured that all recital fees were waived this semester, allowing every child to perform, regardless of their family's circumstances. There was a rustle of whispers, a few parents nodding like they somehow already knew. I stayed standing, the box now held loosely at my side. The principal cleared her throat again. We didn't know who to thank until we noticed the handwriting on the check matched an earlier note we received. She looked directly at me. "Mr. Daniel Reyes," she said, and her voice rose ever so slightly with warmth. "Would you please stand?" A hush fell like a curtain over the gym. Whispers stopped. Even the crying baby 2 rows back fell silent. I froze. She continued, gesturing toward me. "Thank you for your incredible generosity. Your gift touched every student here, including your daughter Lily, who, by the way, is a stunning dancer." I didn't know what to do with my hands. The gift box hung limply as dozens of eyes turned toward me, some blinking, some open in quiet disbelief. The same people who didn't nod when I arrived, the ones who asked if I was still staff. A clap started somewhere near the back, slow and steady, then more joined. Within seconds, the entire gym was applauding this time for me, and Lily, from the wings of the stage, peeked out just enough to see me, and grinned. She didn't even try to hide it. If you've ever been through something like this, quiet, overlooked, but still trying, drop a comment or let me know where you're watching from. Hit like or subscribe if family drama or school politics ever made you feel invisible too. I looked down at the box in my hands, then back at the stage where the final act was about to begin. For the first time that night, I stood without shrinking, and the room stood still, watching. After the recital ended, people began shuffling toward the exits. The buzz returned to the room. Like bees stirred in a jar, parents chatting, shoes squeaking against polished gym floors, folding chairs scraping concrete as they were dragged back into alignment. But the sound I clung to was quieter, the soft pad of ballet slippers running toward me. Daddy Lily's voice rang through the gym like a bell that didn't belong to any performance. She sprinted with her arms outstretched, still in costume, glitter clinging to her cheeks. Her tutu slightly crooked from all the movement. Her hair had come loose from the tight bun, and 2 damp curls stuck to her forehead. I bent down and braced myself just in time to catch her full-force hug. Her arms locked around my neck, and the box wedged between us. "I saw you on stage. Everyone clap for you," she whispered like she still couldn't believe it. I pulled back just enough to look at her. "They clap for you, too. But that wasn't just for me," she said, suddenly serious. "The principal said your name." Lily reached down and noticed the box, wide-eyed. "Is that for me?" I nodded, carefully handing it over. "Open it." She sat cross-legged on the gym floor, unbothered by the noise or the people stepping around us. She tugged the red ribbon, then peeled the lid open slowly, like unwrapping magic. Her eyes widened when she saw the shoes, lifting them out one by one, her fingers tracing the delicate stitching. "You got them personalized?" she asked, voice soft, unsure. "Custom soles, and the inside has your initials," I said, "so you always remember who you are, even when the world gets loud." She didn't answer right away, just hugged the shoes to her chest and pressed her forehead against my knee. That moment should have felt like triumph, but in the corner of my eye, I noticed them 2 of the moms from earlier, the ones who stepped past me without looking. They stood in a small circle near the bleachers, glancing over, whispering. One of them held a bouquet of lilies, irony not lost on me. The other had her phone out, scrolling with a pinched expression. Then another familiar voice called out from behind. "Dan," I turned. It was Lydia, Lily's mom, my ex. She wore her usual Saturday look yoga pants, sleek ponytail, and a tank top with a zip-up hoodie tied around her waist like a prop. Her nails were freshly done, almond-shaped and glossy pink. She approached with 2 paper coffee cups and a man I didn't recognize trailing just behind her. "I thought you said you couldn't make it," she said, half smiling. "You had a shift?" "Right. I switched," I replied simply, watching Lily slip her new shoes back into the box. Lydia's eyes narrowed slightly. "Huh. Must have cost you some favors. It was worth it," I said. "Steady." Her boyfriend, maybe the 4th since our divorce, gave me a quick nod, then focused on something on his Apple Watch, pretending not to be uncomfortable. I didn't blame him. Lydia could make anyone feel like they'd stepped into a play halfway through the second act. "I didn't realize you were the donor," she added, voice cool. "That's surprising." I didn't respond. There was no point in defending my choices to someone who stopped listening years ago. Lily noticed the tension, her gaze flicking between us. "Daddy got me custom shoes," she said proudly, holding them up. Lydia looked at the shoes, then at me. "You didn't have to go overboard." "I know," I said. "I wanted to." She hesitated, then handed Lily one of the coffee cups. "You ready to come with us? We're going to get dinner. Your grandma's meeting us." Lily looked at me. "Can Daddy come too?" There was a pause, one of those loaded silences where the air thickens. Lydia cleared her throat. "Actually, tonight's kind of just us, sweetie. You'll see him soon." "Okay." Lily's shoulders dipped slightly. She nodded and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Can I bring the shoes?" "Of course," I said, brushing a loose curl behind her ear. Lydia started walking toward the exit, and Lily followed, clutching the gift box tight. Halfway there, she turned and waved. I waved back, holding my smile even after they disappeared into the hallway. The gym was nearly empty now, just janitors stacking chairs, my people, my shift, my usual world. I took a slow breath and headed toward the side exit, not wanting to explain myself to anyone else. As I walked into the parking lot, I saw my reflection in the glass door shirt slightly wrinkled now, smile lines etched deeper than I remembered, and eyes that looked like they'd stood too long in a storm. But there was something else, too. A quiet kind of defiance. The kind you only get after surviving small humiliations in public. My truck was parked under the farthest streetlight, not because I wanted to hide it, but because the other spaces were taken when I arrived. As I opened the door, I noticed a small note stuck under the windshield wiper. I pulled it free. It was handwritten in black ink, curved letters like someone who still wrote thank you notes. "Mr. Reyes, thank you for what you did. My daughter never danced before this year because we couldn't afford it. Tonight was her first time on stage. She cried from happiness afterward. I wanted you to know that your kindness mattered." A mom who was watching. I stood there for a moment, the paper fluttering slightly in the wind, not knowing where to place that feeling. It wasn't pride, and it wasn't validation. It was more like a warm ache, like a wound healing just slow enough that you still remember why it formed in the first place. You don't always get applause. Sometimes you get silence. And in that silence, a single handwritten note says everything no microphone ever could. I climbed into the truck and started the engine. The hum filled the space like a slow exhale. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. 2 missed calls from work. A voicemail from Lydia. Probably something about rescheduling Lily's pickup. I didn't check it. Instead, I turned on the radio static at first, then a soft jazz station fading into clarity, and let it play. Not every gift gets received right away, but some of them land when no one's looking. Quietly, completely. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of old coffee from the pot I forgot to rinse. Light was filtering in through the blinds of my small apartment, casting thin stripes across the wooden floor and the couch where I'd fallen asleep halfway through an old dance documentary Lily once loved. My neck ached. The TV was still glowing in the dark, paused on a dancer mid-spin elegant, suspended, completely still. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and checked my phone. 2 new text messages, both from Lydia. Thanks for the shoes. She won't take them off. Thought you'd want to know. Also, my mom said the principal was talking about you at the restaurant. The whole table was stunned. I stared at those words. Not hostile, not warm, just observing. The way people watch clouds shift but don't step outside to feel the rain. I made a fresh pot of coffee, showered, and went out to sweep the back alley behind the apartment complex. It was something I did on weekends even though nobody asked. Trash blew in from the street sometimes, mostly candy wrappers or broken beer bottles. No one said thank you, and that was fine. By 10 o'clock, I was at the campus. I had volunteered to help the facilities team clean up after a weekend fundraiser. I wasn't scheduled, but I showed up anyway. Familiar motion steadied me, mopping corners, straightening chairs, replacing half-used rolls of paper towels. The world made more sense when it was quiet and needed fixing. As I was gathering up extension cords from the auditorium stage, a voice called from the back. Mr. Reyes. I looked up. It was Mrs. Emery, the principal from Lily's school. She walked briskly toward me, clipboard in hand as always. Her cardigan was patterned with tiny birds this time, and she wore the same glasses that slightly magnified her eyes. I hope I'm not intruding, she said, slightly breathless. I asked at the front desk if you were around. They pointed me here. I stepped down from the stage, not intruding at all, just tidying. She extended a small envelope, white, sealed with a school emblem sticker. This is a formal letter of gratitude from the district, she said, but I wanted to give it to you personally. I hesitated. You didn't have to go out of your way. Oh, but I did, she said firmly. Do you know how rare it is for someone in your position to make that kind of gesture and not ask for their name on a plaque? I looked at the envelope, then slowly opened it. The letter was typed neatly, filled with phrases like extraordinary community spirit and anonymity with integrity. My name appeared in bold, twice. I didn't donate for credit, I said quietly. She nodded. That's why it mattered. She tucked the clipboard under her arm. Would you consider joining the school's advisory committee? It's mostly parents, but we could use your voice. Your daughter would benefit, and so would others. I didn't know how to respond right away. The idea of sitting around a table with some of the same people who used to ignore me felt strange. But another thought followed. Maybe Lily would sit taller knowing her dad had a seat at that table. I'll think about it, I said. She smiled. That's all I ask. She turned to leave but paused at the door. One more thing. A few parents have asked who you were, not out of gossip, out of genuine curiosity. Maybe some of them saw you for the first time. I watched her leave, the door swinging slowly behind her. Back in the supply room, I sat on a metal stool and stared at the letter again. For years, I had existed in the periphery, dropping Lily off, picking her up, packing lunches in plastic boxes she sometimes returned unopened. I never minded being invisible if it meant she got to shine, but maybe I had let that become the only version of myself I thought I was allowed to be. That afternoon, I called my older brother, Carlos. We hadn't spoken in weeks, not because of a fight, just distance. His world ran faster than mine. Law firm. 2 kids, a backyard with a fire pit. Hey, man. He answered, surprised. Everything okay? Yeah, I said. Just felt like checking in. We talked for 20 minutes about Lily, about Mom's latest blood pressure scare, about the new sofa he'd ordered. I didn't mention the recital or the principal or the shoes. I just let the conversation be simple. For once. Near the end, Carlos said something that caught me off guard. "You've always been the quiet one, but you've got more impact than you realize." You know that I didn't respond right away. I just let his words sit there. Later that evening, Lily called from Lydia's. "Daddy." Guess what? I leaned against the kitchen counter, smiling. "What, we're doing another show in 2 months. A summer showcase. And I get to choreograph a little piece." "No way." "Yes way." She giggled. "Mrs. Callahan said I have a good eye for movement. And guess what I'm calling it? What? The gift. Like the shoes. But also like you." I felt a lump in my throat. I didn't want her to hear it in my voice. So I joked. "You know that means I get front row seats." "Right. Obviously," she said. "And maybe this time, they won't ignore you." She said it so easily, not as bitterness, just as a fact she observed like a moon in the sky. I had no idea how much she saw. Maybe I'd underestimated her strength. Maybe she'd been watching me this whole time, waiting for me to stop hiding behind brooms and light switches. After we hung up, I walked over to my bedroom and opened the drawer where I kept things I didn't know how to explain: old birthday cards, report cards, a pressed flower Lily once gave me from a school trip I couldn't chaperone. I added the district letter to the pile, and then I sat quietly, hands folded, letting the silence of the apartment settle like dust on sunlight. Recognition is a funny thing. Sometimes it arrives with applause, sometimes with a note under your windshield, or a dance titled in your honor, and sometimes it's just the feeling that for once you didn't have to prove yourself. You just were. A few weeks passed. The town shifted into summer soft breezes through half-open windows, sunscreen-slicked kids running through sprinklers, and the occasional sound of someone mowing a lawn too early on a Saturday. My world stayed mostly the same: early shifts, lunch in the truck, evenings folding laundry while Lily's drawings curled on the fridge door like petals. But something in me was changing, even if nothing looked different on the surface. One Friday afternoon, Lily came home with a paper invitation folded 3 times and sealed with a strawberry sticker. "You're invited," she read dramatically, handing it to me. "To our summer dance preview. Only special guests." I opened it. Her handwriting was wobbly but proud. "Preview showing The Gift. Private rehearsal at Studio 2, Saturday. 4:00 p.m. VIP Daddy." "Studio 2?" I asked. She nodded, grinning. "Mrs. Callahan said I could use the space after class, just for one rehearsal. You'll be the first to see it. Like, ever." Her eyes were lit with something fierce. The same eyes that had watched me so closely at the recital, the same ones that blinked, wide and searching, when I used to fall asleep on the couch during cartoons. I cleared my Saturday, didn't trade shifts, didn't make excuses. The next day, I drove to the dance studio on Maple Street, a white building tucked between a laundromat and a corner deli that always smelled of dill pickles and burnt toast. It looked small from the outside, but inside, it opened like a lantern. Mirrors lined every wall. A polished wood floor stretched from edge to edge, and in the center, Lily, already in motion. She didn't hear me come in. Music played softly from a small speaker, something instrumental and slow, with piano and strings curling together like smoke. I stood near the door and watched. Her arms extended as if she were giving something invisible away. Then she'd curl into herself, spin, pause, and reach again. The pattern repeated, but never felt the same twice. It was like she was building a conversation with air. After a few minutes, the music stopped. She turned, breathing heavy. "You watched all of it?" she asked. hopeful, every second, I said. She ran to grab a towel, blotting sweat from her forehead. It's not done yet. I messed up one part. Didn't look like it. She dropped her towel on a bench and sat cross-legged, patting the space beside her. I joined her slowly, the echo of her shoes still soft in the room. You know why I called it the gift? She asked. I figured it was the shoes. She shook her head. It's not really about the shoes. I mean, it is, a little, but it's more like about what you do. How you show up even when people don't notice. Like when you used to leave snacks in my lunch even when I forgot to say thank you. Or how you always came to my shows, even if you had work. I looked down at the floor, tracing the wood grain with my eyes. I never needed a thank you. I know, she said, but I think you deserved one anyway. We sat there in the stillness, the kind that only big rooms can hold. No audience, no applause, no bouquets, just us, breathing the same quiet. I want to record it, she added. The dance. I want you to have it. In case you can't come one day, I'll always come. She smiled, almost teasing. Still, I want you to have it. Later that evening, I helped her record the routine on my phone. We did 2 takes. The second one she liked better. As the final pose froze and the frame arms open, chin lifted, I paused to the video and stared. Something about it struck me deeper than pride. It wasn't just her technique or the timing. It was the way she looked unafraid, unapologetic. Like someone who'd grown into her own light. And somewhere in that dance was the shape of everything we never said. Every missed birthday party. Every half-eaten dinner I reheated after my shift. Every moment I let her shine while I stood at the edges. I realized then she had been paying attention all along. That night. I posted the video to a private group chat I shared with my cousins. I didn't post often. I usually just read, sent the occasional thumbs up. But this time, I wrote a caption. Lily's first solo. She choreographed it herself. Called it the gift. Thought you might want to see what she's been working on. A few minutes later, the responses trickled in. Cousin Mia. She's incredible. Dan. So graceful. You must be so proud. Cousin Joel looks like someone got her mom's balance and her dad's heart. Aunt Raina, can I share this with the church group? They'd love this. I didn't expect to feel anything from those messages, but when I read them, I felt included. Not pitied, not ignored, just seen. The following week at drop-off, I pulled into the school parking lot and noticed something strange. A space up front had been marked with a small laminated sign that read, "Reserved Daniel Reyes Community Contributor." It wasn't a big sign, probably made with a home printer and some packing tape. But I stared at it for a long moment before pulling in. When I walked Lily to the entrance, one of the PTA moms waved. Another said, "Hey, loved the video of your daughter, so talented." They didn't say janitor. They didn't say staff. Just your daughter. Maybe that's all I ever wanted. The night before the summer showcase. Lily knocked on my bedroom door holding her costume on a hanger. Pale lavender with silver accents. "Will you help me steam this?" she asked. Of course. She sat cross-legged on my bed, watching as I worked. "You nervous?" I asked. "A little. But it's weird. I also feel ready. Good weird. The best kind." I handed her the steamed dress, and she laid it flat across her lap, smoothing the fabric like it was something sacred. "You know," she said, voice quiet. "Sometimes I used to wish you were different. Like, I don't know, louder. Or more like other dads." I nodded slowly. "I get it. But I don't wish that anymore," she added. "Because if you were like them, I might not have learned how to see people." I looked at her. Really looked. And there it was again, that stillness, that strength. And just like that, I didn't feel invisible anymore. The auditorium was warmer than usual, packed with parents fanning themselves with folded programs and whispering in low hums. The stage curtains hadn't opened yet, but a subtle glow from the wings hinted at movement behind them. Tiny silhouettes adjusting shoes, fixing straps, pacing with the nervous energy of youth. I sat in the front row, as promised. Not by luck this time. Not because I arrived early. A PTA mom with chunky earrings and a clipboard had pointed at my seat herself. Front and center. "Mr. Reyes," she said with a bright smile, as if we'd always known each other. "We've marked it with your name. And yes, your daughter told us about the solo. Everyone's excited." I nodded politely, unsure what to say. The plastic folding chair was wrapped with a satin ribbon and a printed card. Reserved Lily's dad VIP guest. For a second, I just stared at it. 2 rows behind me, I heard someone whisper my name, half curious, half cautious. Yeah, that's him. The dad from the fundraiser. He's the reason recital fees were covered this year. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. There was a time I might have sunk into my seat at being spoken about like that. But tonight, something sat differently inside me. Maybe because I knew who I was sitting here for. Maybe because Lily had named her dance after me, and that kind of recognition reorders your bones. The lights dimmed. The hum quieted. The announcer stepped out, a theater student with a trembling mic and an over-practiced voice. "Welcome to the Summer Bloom Showcase. Thank you to all families, friends, and community members. Tonight is not just a performance, it's a celebration of growth, grace, and giving." That last word echoed in my ears more than it should have. The first few performances passed like a dream. Younger kids with bouncing ponytails and jazz hands, a tap routine to a pop remix, a trio of boys performing a hip-hop combo that made the crowd cheer even louder than they clapped. Then, the lights changed. Softer, cooler. The announcer returned, but her voice was quieter now. Next, a student choreographed piece titled "The Gift," performed and created by Lily Reyes. My breath caught. She stepped out under a single spotlight, lavender costume glistening, barefoot. Her arms floated to her sides like petals caught mid-fall. The music started, the same instrumental piece from rehearsal. But here, in the theater's silence, it sounded deeper, slower, as if time obeyed her. Each movement told a story. She gave, retreated, reached again. It was a conversation in motion, about love that gives without asking, about being seen after being unseen for too long. I didn't know if the audience understood all that, but I did. I saw myself in every pirouette, every pause, every gesture that looked like an open hand. When she finished, the lights stayed dim for a beat too long, like even the tech crew needed a moment to process what they'd witnessed. And then, applause. Real applause. The kind that ripples from one section to the next and swells until the whole room is clapping. Lily took her bow. She glanced at me in the front row, then smiled so slightly I almost missed it. But I saw it. I stood, not for the crowd, not for her acknowledgement, but because my legs moved before thought could form. The room followed. Applause turned into a standing ovation. For her. For the gift. After the show, I waited near the dressing room hallway, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers I picked from the garden behind my apartment building that morning. The petals were a little uneven. A few had spots, but they were real. Alive. Just like this night. Lily emerged, still glowing, sweat at her temples, glitter smudged under her eyes. "You stood," she said, walking up to me. "You never stand." "I had to," I said. You danced something I didn't even know needed to be said. She leaned into me. Not a hug, just rested her head briefly on my shoulder. Thank you for seeing it. Behind her, a few other girls called out goodbyes. Parents filtered out with cameras and congratulatory hugs. Lydia approached next, standing a few feet back. She had her arms crossed, but there was softness in her expression. That was really beautiful, she said. She's come a long way. She has. There was a beat. She said you helped choreograph it, Lydia added. I raised an eyebrow. I didn't choreograph. I just swept the studio after. She said she built it from watching you. Said you taught her what giving looks like. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The weight of those words held more than any reply I could offer. Lydia nodded slowly. For what it's worth. I'm glad she has you. Really. She left it at that. When Lily and I stepped out into the warm evening, the parking lot shimmered with leftover heat. Cicadas chirped from somewhere behind the gym. We walked slowly toward the truck, her hand loosely holding mine. As I opened the passenger door for her, she turned and said, "Can I play the music from the dance? Just while we drive." Of course. I handed her the phone, and she queued it up. As the first notes played, the truck felt like a sanctuary. We didn't talk much. We didn't have to. The windows were down. The sky was pinking at the edges. We passed the bakery where I once bought her birthday cupcakes when I couldn't afford a cake. The bus stop bench where she first asked if I was poor. The diner with the sticky tables and the waitress who always gave her extra whipped cream. All those moments existed still, but they didn't define us now. They were just pieces. Now there was this, her solo, her voice, her gift. At a red light. She looked over. You think people really listened? I think they heard you. She leaned back, closed her eyes, and smiled. For once, I didn't feel like I had to earn my place beside her. I was already there. The Monday after the showcase, I returned to my usual shift at the campus. The building was nearly empty. Summer session meant fewer students, fewer messes, fewer reminders that I worked behind the scenes of everyone else's ambitions. I didn't mind the quiet, the smell of floor wax, the buzz of vending machines, the occasional sound of footsteps 2 halls over it had all become a rhythm I could trust. But that morning, something felt different. It wasn't louder, just heavier. Like a presence had settled around me. I was changing out a trash bag in the faculty lounge when Professor Haynes walked in. We'd crossed paths dozens of times before, but until now, our conversations had never gone beyond polite nods or a good morning. He paused by the sink. Mr. Reyes. Right. I looked up. Yes. Sir. I saw the showcase this weekend. My niece danced in one of the early numbers. But I have to say, he leaned forward slightly, as if making a confession. Your daughter's solo. It stunned me. Absolutely stunning. I felt my face warm, unsure where to put my eyes. Thank you. She worked hard on it. It showed. And the way it was introduced. The gift. Dedicated to a father, I'll admit. I teared up. Not something I often do in public. He chuckled softly, then added, People don't always notice what's right in front of them, Mr. Reyes. But sometimes, it only takes one moment to turn a background figure into the center. With that, he nodded and left, leaving me standing beside a half-full bin of plastic coffee pods and crumpled faculty meeting agendas. That day, 3 more people spoke to me by name. Not hey, janitor. Not a half smile while avoiding eye contact. By name. And not because I'd asked for it, just because they finally saw. I finished my shift an hour early, then stopped by the school supply store before heading home. Lily's summer dance class was starting next week, and she needed a new leotard and some bar gloves. I picked out the ones she circled in the catalog, then added a second pair just in case. I also bought a small notebook and pen set with her initials engraved on the front: L, R. Again. A little ritual now. Back at the apartment, I found Lily on the floor of the living room surrounded by craft supplies, glitter paper, safety scissors, dried glue stains on her elbows. She looked up. Guess what I'm making? Confetti bombs. No. She grinned. Invitations? For my solo screening. I'm editing the video from the showcase. Mrs. Callahan said I can share it at the studio for the younger dancers. You're hosting a screening. She nodded. I want them to see what's possible. That even if you don't have fancy stuff or if people don't clap right away, you can still dance something true. I sat down beside her, picking up a piece of ribbon. You sound like someone I wish I'd met when I was your age. She paused, then leaned her head against my shoulder. You're who I met. We didn't speak for a while. The sunlight drifted across the rug in patches, highlighting bits of paper and colored pens. Time slowed in that moment, not in the way memories get slow, but in the way truth makes everything quiet. That evening, we ordered takeout and watched an old recording of Swan Lake. Lily narrated the plot like a sports announcer, pausing to critique the jumps and explain the symbolism of the swan arms. When Odette's final pose stretched across the stage, Lily turned to me. Do you think it's sad that she disappears in the end? I don't know, I said. Maybe it's not about disappearing. Maybe it's about being remembered. She didn't say anything, but I saw the thought settle behind her eyes. The next few days passed quickly. Studio rehearsals, grocery runs, a surprise heatwave that knocked out power in the building for half a day. I spent one afternoon helping the superintendent fix a broken fan in the student center, and another driving Lily to her friend Sophia's house for a sleepover. And through all of it, the same quiet realization kept returning. I wasn't in the shadows anymore, not because I'd stepped into a spotlight, but because the people who mattered most had finally started turning toward me. One morning, as I was folding laundry, my phone buzzed with a message from Lydia. Mom's birthday dinner is this Saturday. She asked if you're coming, said she hopes so. We'll save you a seat. It was simple, unexpected. No sarcasm, no strings. Just a seat at a table that once didn't have room for me. I typed back, yes. Thanks for letting me know. Then deleted it. Waited. Typed again. I'll be there. Saturday arrived with a softness in the air, like the weather had decided to be merciful. Lily wore a blue dress and asked me to braid her hair the way I used to when she was 5. We brought a bouquet of white tulips, her grandmother's favorite. Dinner was held at a small restaurant near the marina, with wide windows overlooking the water and string lights woven through the ceiling beams. The Reyes family wasn't loud, but we took up space. Laughter carried across the room. Plates clinked. And when I walked in with Lily beside me, the conversations didn't stop, but they paused just enough to notice. Daniel, Lydia's mother said, rising from her seat, arms extended. So glad you came. We hugged awkwardly but warmly. Her grip was tighter than I remembered. And you brought tulips, she said, smiling. You remembered. I nodded, unsure how much I was allowed to feel here. Throughout the meal, no one brought up the past. No one asked why I hadn't shown up for things years ago, or why I always left early from gatherings. Instead, they asked about Lily's dance, about how she learned choreography, about whether she'd apply for scholarships when the time came. They didn't talk to me like an outsider. They talked to me like someone they expected to return. When dessert came, a waitress delivered a slice of chocolate cake with a single candle, and Lydia's mom raised her glass. And to Daniel, she added, for raising a remarkable girl. People clapped gently. Not a performance. Just a moment. Lily reached for my hand under the table and squeezed. I squeezed back. After the dinner, as we walked back to the car, she said, "You were really quiet in there." I was listening. I said, "To what?" "To the sound of a seat being saved." She looked at me sideways. "You gonna sit in more of them now?" I smiled. "I think I just might." The stars blinked faintly above the water. Lily twirled once on the sidewalk. Just because. And I stood there watching her, knowing that everything I'd once been excluded from, I now belonged to. Not because I fought my way in, but because I stayed. A few days after the dinner, I received a thick envelope in the mail addressed to Mr. Daniel Reyes in careful script. No return address. I assumed it was one of those glossy catalogs or neighborhood newsletters. But when I opened it, a folded set of documents slipped out, along with a handwritten note on yellow stationery. "Dear Mr. Reyes, after reviewing community submissions, your name was nominated multiple times for our parent advocate profile to be featured in this year's back-to-school bulletin. We'd love to highlight your contributions to the performing arts program. Please let us know if you're open to an interview. Warmly, Camille Johnson, Editor, Franklin Unified District Bulletin." I read the letter 3 times. It wasn't just a PTA flyer or a cookie drive shoutout. It was a profile. Something permanent. Something that meant someone, not just one person, but several, had spoken my name when I wasn't in the room. I set the papers down and looked around the apartment. Nothing had changed. Same mismatched couch cushions. Same dented stovetop. But I felt the air had shifted, like the gravity in my life was finally mine to hold. Lily came home later that afternoon wearing a sweatshirt 2 sizes too big and holding a melting snow cone. She walked in mid-sentence, as she always did lately. "And Mrs. Callahan said maybe we can do a workshop in the fall, with parents. She asked if you'd help." I blinked. "Me help with a workshop?" She plopped onto the couch. "Yeah, you'd be great. You help me with balance. Remember, I held a broom while you practiced spotting." She grinned. "Exactly." I poured her a glass of water and handed her the letter from the school district. She read it in silence, then raised her eyebrows. "Wait, they want to interview you?" "Apparently so. For being, what, a dad?" I shrugged. "A dad who stayed, I guess." She folded the letter carefully and said, "You should do it." "You think so?" She looked at me like I was the one asking something obvious. "You didn't do all this to hide again?" "Right." Her words landed like they had roots. The interview was scheduled for the following week. I almost canceled twice. Even wrote out the text to the editor once, thumb hovering over the send button. But something stopped me. Maybe Lily's voice in the back of my mind. Maybe just the image of the front row seat with my name on it. When Camille Johnson arrived, she was younger than I expected. Maybe mid-30s, with a friendly but focused demeanor. She carried a tablet, a tape recorder, and a smile that felt more curious than polite. We sat at the community library in one of those sound-dampened rooms with glass walls and bright chairs. "I'll start easy," she said, setting the recorder on the table. "Tell me who you are, your background, how you came to be part of the school community." I cleared my throat. "I'm Daniel Reyes. I work night shifts at the community college as part of the janitorial team. I'm a single father. My daughter, Lily, is a dancer. And I guess somewhere along the way, I became more than just the guy who picks up after people." Camille smiled. "I like that. More than just..." We talked for over an hour, about the anonymous donation, about Lily's solo, about being overlooked at school events and how showing up quietly is still showing up. She never rushed me, never tried to reword what I said. She just listened. At the end, she said, "There's a quote I want to use in the piece. If it's all right with you." "What is it?" She read from her notes. He didn't need the spotlight. He built it for someone else, then stood back and watched her shine. I felt my throat tighten. I nodded once. When the article came out 2 weeks later, I found copies stacked near the front desk of Lily's school. I took one, folded it gently, and tucked it into my work bag like it was something precious. That afternoon, I picked Lily up from practice, and as she buckled her seatbelt, she said, "You know who read your article? Who, Principal Emery?" She made me read it aloud to the younger girls in class. I laughed. "You serious?" She said it's a lesson in presence. Lily added, "And that sometimes the best kind of leadership is quiet." Over the next few days, small things started happening. A dad I'd never met patted me on the back in the grocery store and said, "You're the guy from the bulletin. Good stuff." Man. Someone left a thank you card on the windshield of my truck. Unsigned. A 7th-grade boy at the school nodded at me once, then said, "I liked your story. My dad doesn't come to my games, but maybe one day he will." And then came the voicemail. It was late. I had just finished folding laundry and was about to crash when my phone buzzed. A voicemail from an unfamiliar number. "Hi, this is Mr. Ellis from Ridgewood High. I know this is out of the blue, but we're looking to build a mentorship program for students without strong family support systems. I came across your name through the district bulletin. Would you ever be open to speaking with some of our kids? Even just once. We'd love for them to meet someone who understands what it means to show up." I sat on the edge of my bed, phone to my ear, frozen. I hadn't ever thought of myself as someone to look up to. I had spent so long being background noise. I didn't realize someone might want to listen. That weekend, I went to a thrift store and found a secondhand blazer that actually fit. I bought it. No hesitation. I didn't know when I'd wear it, but something in me said I would. One night, Lily and I sat on the fire escape eating popsicles in our pajamas. It had rained earlier, and the metal steps were still slick in spots. She leaned against me, swinging her legs slowly. "Do you think things are different now?" she asked. "What do you mean, you? Us. This. Life?" I looked out across the city. The streetlights blinked like stars learning how to rise. "Yeah," I said finally. "I think they are." She didn't ask why. She didn't press. She just peeled the wrapper off her second popsicle and said, "I hope we keep getting bigger. Not like famous, just more real." Me too. And there, under the dim city sky, surrounded by old brick and fire escape bolts, I realized something. This was the center. Not the spotlight, not the microphone, not even the applause, but this quiet, ordinary fullness, this shared air between two people who'd learned how to love through absence and repetition. And maybe that was the real gift all along. The mentorship event was held in the Ridgewood High Library on a Thursday afternoon. I arrived 20 minutes early, not because I was nervous, though I was, but because I didn't want to be the kind of person who showed up late to something like this. These kids had already had enough people fail to show up. I wore the second-hand blazer, pressed as best I could. My slacks were the same ones I'd worn to Lily's recital, shoes polished, hair combed back. I carried nothing but a water bottle and a folded paper with a few notes I wasn't planning to read. The school counselor, Mr. Ellis, greeted me at the front office. Mid-40s, sleeves rolled to the elbow, clipboard tucked under one arm. The kind of man who seemed to operate on quiet caffeine and purpose. "We're so glad you came, Mr. Reyes," he said as we walked down the corridor. "There's a small group waiting, about 7 kids, mostly juniors and seniors. A few of them read your article. Some were volunteered." I nodded. "That's fine. I was one of those kids once." He led me to the library's back corner, where the rows of books parted into a small circle of plastic chairs. 7 teenagers sat scattered, 4 boys, 3 girls. Each had the same guarded look I knew too well. The look that says I'm not going to care, just in case it doesn't matter. I cleared my throat and introduced myself. I'm Daniel Reyes. I began. And if you're wondering why I'm here, to be honest, so am I. A few of them cracked faint smiles. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not rich. I didn't climb some big corporate ladder. I clean buildings for a living. I've spent most of my life being passed by or looked through. And for a long time, I thought that was just my place. One of the boys leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. So what changed? I looked directly at him. Someone noticed what I was doing when I thought no one ever would. Another girl twirled her pencil between her fingers. Like what I showed up, I said. To school meetings, to recitals, to pickups. Even when I was tired, even when I felt invisible. And I kept doing it. Until one day, someone said my name on a stage. One of the students, a girl with braids and chipped nail polish, raised her hand. Was that the moment everything got better? I smiled. No. That was the moment I realized it had been getting better all along and I just hadn't looked up yet. The room was quiet after that. No more questions for a while. Just listening. And I talked. Not like a speaker, but like someone who finally had the mic at the dinner table. I told them about Lily, about how she choreographed the gift, how she taught me that being seen isn't always about being loud, it's about being consistent, present, real. When the hour was up, Mr. Ellis stood and thanked me in front of the group. A few kids came up after to shake my hand. One boy, taller than me with a backpack slung low, said, "My dad works nights. I used to think that meant he didn't care. I'm gonna ask him about his job tonight." That hit harder than I expected. That weekend, Lily and I walked through the local arts fair downtown. Booths lined the sidewalks, ceramic mugs, watercolor prints, tiny keychains shaped like ballet slippers. Lily wore a bucket hat and carried a canvas tote with her dance shoes inside just in case. She stopped at one booth with framed photos of dancers mid-leap, mid-spin, frozen in time. The vendor, a woman in her 50s with silver hair and a linen apron, noticed Lily admiring a print. "You dance?" she asked. Lily nodded. "Since I was 5. She choreographed her own solo last month," I added. The woman raised her eyebrows. "Now that's something. You keep that up. You'll be running your own company by 25. Lily beamed. Then the woman turned to me. "And you the photographer?" I blinked. "Me. Well, you've got that watchful look," she said. "The kind people who see what no one else sees usually wear." I didn't know what to say to that. But Lily answered for me. "He's the reason I danced in the first place." The woman smiled, nodded once, and went back to arranging her prints. But the moment stayed with me, all the way through the kettle corn stand, the puppet show, the walk back to the car. It echoed louder than anything else I'd heard that day, that night. Lily and I watched old home videos. She dug out the USB drive we kept in the top drawer. Labeled Lily. Years 1 to 5. The screen showed grainy clips of birthdays, park swings, plastic dance recitals in our living room. In one video, she's 4 years old, wearing a tutu and spinning in socks. I'm holding the phone, laughing behind the camera. "I fell," she says, tumbling onto the carpet. "You flew," I reply. Lily hit pause. "I never heard you say that before. I probably didn't think it mattered then." She looked at me and whispered, "It did." Summer ended slowly, like a flame learning how to dim. Mornings became cooler. Schedules became tighter. But some things stayed steady: her shoes by the door, her glittery headbands, her pencil scribbles on the kitchen calendar that marked every upcoming rehearsal and maybe snack day. One night, after she fell asleep on the couch with a book in her lap. I stood by the window and looked out over the city. The reflection in the glass showed me as I was no spotlight, no applause, just a man in a t-shirt and sweats, holding a glass of water and thinking about the shape of his life. A year ago, I had no idea if Lily saw me, if anyone did. Now, the world hadn't changed, but maybe I had. Maybe I had allowed something in, and maybe that was the true miracle. I wrote an email that night to Mr. Ellis. Hi, Mr. Ellis. Thank you again for inviting me to speak with your students. I'd be happy to return if you think it would help. Maybe next time we can create something together. I've got a few ideas for small group projects. Best. Daniel Reyes. I sent it without reading it twice. And for once, I didn't feel like I was overstepping. A few days later, Lily stuck a note on the fridge before heading to school. It was written in pink marker and slightly slanted. Dad, you are the music I danced to before I ever knew there was a stage. Love, LR. I didn't move it, not even after 2 weeks passed. The paper curled at the edges, but it stayed. A quiet reminder. Not every gift is wrapped. Some are lived. The fall semester began with a new tempo. The mornings were brisk enough for jackets. Lily's dance schedule expanded 2 classes a week at the studio, plus rehearsals for the winter performance. The school year had barely begun, and already her calendar was dotted with circles, underlines, and scribbled post-its that migrated from one page to the next. She was growing taller, surer, more opinionated in the best way, and I was learning to step back without vanishing. One Thursday evening, after dinner, she sat across from me at the kitchen table, filling out a school survey with a pencil gripped tightly in her left hand. I was going over a list of building maintenance supplies I'd been asked to order for the community college. She looked up suddenly. "What's your favorite word?" I blinked. What favorite word? For the survey, we're collecting them from adults. I thought for a second, then said, "Steady." She nodded, writing it down without a smile. "That fits. What's yours?" She shrugged. "Right now, maybe. Echo." "Why echo?" "Because it means someone heard you, even if they're far away." I didn't answer. I just watched her write it slowly on the form. Echo because it means someone heard you. It wasn't a big moment, but it stayed with me. Later that week, I was invited to attend my first advisory committee meeting at the school. I almost didn't go. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was afraid I'd walk into a room of polished people in designer glasses with color-coded folders and phrases like strategic objectives and equity impact. But when I arrived, the room was smaller than I expected. 6 folding chairs, a pot of lukewarm coffee, a tray of store-bought cookies that had been opened and resealed twice. One woman wore yoga pants and Crocs. Another man, who turned out to be a bus driver, leaned his elbow on the table like it was his own kitchen. "Daniel." "Right," said the vice principal, glancing at her clipboard. "Thank you for joining us." They didn't ask me for a speech. They asked me for ideas. About the school parking lot during pickup time. About fundraising that didn't involve $30 candles. About making recital night less overwhelming for parents with other kids. I offered small things. Move the music booth closer to the gym entrance. Label the bathrooms more clearly. Provide chairs for grandparents in the front row. People nodded. Someone wrote it down. It wasn't dramatic. No spotlights. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't contributing from the sidelines. The next week, Lily told me she'd be staying late at school to help paint sets for the winter performance. "You okay picking me up at 6?" she asked. "Of course. Want dinner after? Can we do the noodle place done?" When I pulled into the school lot that evening, the sky was turning the kind of orange that always made me think of autumn as a goodbye written in soft light. I parked under the same street lamp where I once sat with a note under my windshield. That space had become a quiet landmark in my life now. As I waited, I saw Mrs. Emery walking toward the exit, holding a box of folders. She smiled when she saw me. "Mr. Reyes. Good evening." "Good evening, Principal Emery. You working late?" "Aren't we all?" she said with a laugh. She set the box down on the bench. "I've been meaning to tell you something," she added. I stood, attentive. "What's that?" A few weeks ago, a parent asked why we let someone non-faculty help shape school policy. They didn't mean it cruelly, just curiously. I felt a chill under my collar. "And what did you say I told them? It takes a faculty to teach a child," she said. "But it takes a father to help them believe in what they've learned." She picked up her box and nodded once before heading to her car. I stood there, stunned by the simplicity of what she said. It wasn't flattery. It was a kind of truth that arrived gently but stayed heavy. Lily climbed into the truck a few minutes later, flecks of green paint on her cheek and glitter stuck to her sleeves. "Set design is harder than it looks," she said, buckling her seatbelt. "But I kind of love it." "You want to shower first? Or head straight to noodles?" She considered. "Straight to noodles. Paint gives me character." We laughed. She turned on the radio and found a song she liked, soft piano, a slow beat. She didn't sing along, just stared out the window as we drove. At the restaurant, she ordered spicy broth with extra bean sprouts and told me about the winter show theme. "A story told backward," she explained. "Like, the girl starts sad, then dances herself into remembering joy. That's clever. It's kind of like life." "Right," she said, twirling noodles. "Sometimes you have to move through the hard parts to remember what was good." "Yeah," I said, stirring my tea. "Sometimes you start out invisible, and by the time the music ends, you're front and center." She paused, then smiled. "Exactly." The performance came 2 months later. This time, Lily didn't have a solo. She had 3 ensemble pieces and a small duet. But she choreographed part of a number for the younger class, and when their piece finished, the spotlight lingered just long enough for her name to be announced as assistant choreographer. She waved once from the wings, subtle, proud, herself. And I sat in the front row again, not because someone gave me the seat, but because I arrived and took it without apology, without needing to shrink. The auditorium was filled with clapping parents, blinking cameras, and the smell of floral perfume and peppermint gum. I looked around at the crowd and thought, maybe they don't all know me. Maybe they never will. But I know her, and she knows me. And maybe that's more than enough. After the show, while kids clustered in corners trading flowers and candy, Lily found me by the side exit. "No gift this time," she teased. I handed her a small envelope. Inside was a folded piece of paper with only one word written in my handwriting, "Steady." She read it, looked up. "Like your favorite word?" "It's not just a word," I said. "It's what you've made me." She smiled, tucked the note into her bag, and said, "I think I'll keep it forever." We walked out into the cold air together, not saying much, just holding the space between us like a conversation already understood. Sometimes, I still get overlooked. At the grocery store, on campus, in crowded rooms. But it doesn't feel the same anymore. Because somewhere, in a drawer or a dance studio or a child's heart, something I gave still echoes, still moves, still shines. It was a Sunday afternoon when I finally cleaned the drawer, the one in the hallway table, the catch-all drawer where keys, spare batteries, expired coupons, and unmailed thank you cards went to live in quiet disarray. I'd meant to do it for months, but I never had the time Or maybe I'd simply needed to wait for the moment when pulling old things into the light wouldn't feel like grief. I laid each item out on the table: Lily's old hairbands, a broken measuring tape, 2 mismatched socks, a receipt from the day I bought her those custom shoes. I smoothed it flat. I don't know why I hadn't thrown it out before. Maybe because it was proof of something I did without asking for recognition. Underneath everything, at the very bottom, I found a crumpled sketch Lily had drawn years ago. It was a stick figure version of me, with a mop in one hand and her holding a tiny bouquet. Above it, in childish block letters, "My daddy is a star, even if no one sees him." I stared at it for a long time. Then I taped it up on the fridge, slightly crooked. I didn't need a frame. Winter came in slow hushes, rain tapping against windows, boots lined up at the door, hot chocolate powder clinging to the lip of every mug. Lily took to reading on the couch after school, her legs tucked beneath her, her expression quiet and far away. One evening, she asked if we could go to the theater downtown, the big one with velvet curtains and a chandelier that looked like a frozen galaxy. The school had arranged a discounted group rate for students to see Giselle. She wanted me to come too. "It's different," she said. "Seeing it live?" We sat near the back, the ceiling high above us, the sound of the orchestra warming up filling every crevice of the room. When the curtain rose, I looked at her before I looked at the stage. Her eyes were wide, still, absorbing every note, every step. Midway through the second act, she whispered without turning her head, "When I'm older, I'm going to dance here." I leaned in. "I don't doubt it. And when I do, I'll save you a seat. Front row." That moment wrapped itself around my chest like a scarf I didn't know I needed. Not because I needed the front row, but because she saw me already sitting there in her future. February passed in a blur. The committee meetings continued. I helped organize a donation drive for dance shoes and rehearsal clothes. I even spoke at a staff breakfast once, introducing a grant we'd helped secure for the arts program. Lydia came up to me afterward. "I'm glad you stayed," she said. "Even when I didn't always make it easy." "I didn't stay for you," I said gently, "but I'm glad I'm still here." She nodded. "You know, Lily brags about you now. You're the quiet legend." I smiled. "She's the louder one." "Yeah," she said, "but you're the echo." And then came Lily's 13th birthday. She wanted it small, just a few friends, some cupcakes, and a short performance she and her closest studio mates choreographed together. I offered to rent a space at the rec center, but she said no. Our living room is big enough if we push the couch. So that's what we did. I moved furniture while she strung fairy lights. We borrowed yoga mats for floor work and played music from an old speaker that sometimes crackled. I baked a cake from a box and frosted it myself lopsided. But standing. The performance was only 7 minutes long, but when it ended, every parent clapped like we were in a full theater. I looked around and saw something I never would have believed a year ago. No one treated me like an extra. No one overlooked me. I was simply part of it. Later that night, after the guests had left and the last bit of frosting had been wiped from the counter, Lily sat next to me on the floor, her birthday crown still tilted sideways on her head. "You know," she said, "this was better than any stage. I think so too." She pulled a small box from behind her back. "I made you something," she said. Inside was a keychain, a tiny pair of clay ballet shoes, painted pink. She'd made them in art class and sealed them with clear polish. "For your keys," she said. "So even when you're mopping floors or locking up, you remember what you built." I turned the keychain in my hand. "You made these?" She nodded. "For the man who gave me my first stage." I don't remember what I said. Maybe nothing. Maybe just thank you. But I remember how it felt like forgiveness, legacy, and home braided into a single string. Spring crept in with its usual promises: growth, noise, pollen. I opened the windows more often, started walking in the evenings again. On one of those walks, I passed the community bulletin board by the park. Tacked between flyers for yoga classes and tutoring services was a printed quote in big, bold letters. "You don't have to be loud to matter. You just have to last." Below it, D. Reyes, from Parent Advocate Profile. 2023. I stood there for a full minute. Not because I was shocked, but because some part of me had always thought things like this happened to other people. Now, they happened to me too. That night, Lily found me in the kitchen, finishing dishes. "Want to come watch me practice a new piece?" I dried my hands and followed her to the living room. She cleared a space, rolled her shoulders, and queued up music from her phone. Something soft, slow. As she danced, I watched every line of her body speak. Her fingers, her knees, the way she reached without looking rushed. It was beautiful, but it was also familiar. There was something in her movement that reminded me of myself. Something quiet, enduring. Halfway through, she stopped. "Sorry," she said. "I messed up the footwork." "No," I said. That was the part that made it real. She blinked. "Really, really." She started the music again, and I sat back on the couch, the lamp casting warm light over both of us, the keychain tucked in my palm. I didn't need to say anything more. She was already dancing it. The next morning, I left for work before sunrise. Same jacket, same thermos of coffee, same ring of keys, now heavier by one tiny pair of clay slippers. I locked the building, turned off the hallway lights, and stood for a moment before heading out. It was quiet, but not empty. And I knew if no one else ever clapped again, if no one else said my name into a microphone, what I had given would keep echoing in the places that mattered, in movement, in memory, in the daughter who danced her truth into the world, because I gave her space to try.